Go!
Because obviously, at the time this was released, I was actually too young to see this in a cinema. So I think it is a 15.
It's 2002, so we would have been about 11.
11. My dad came back from a cinema and was like, I've just seen this film, Dog Soldiers. He summarised the premise of like, it's this army doing manoeuvres up in Scotland and all of a sudden they're fighting werewolves. And I was like, do you know what? That's a really, really good idea, and I'm surprised they haven't thought of this already. And then obviously I finally got to watch it. Dad brought it home on DVD. Fucking watched it, and I just thought it was excellent. Do you know what I mean?
I remember around the time this came out, it didn't have a huge promotional campaign, but I feel like it had a lot of fanfare around it, had a lot of excitement around it. You don't usually get, you don't get a lot of sort of horror monster movies in England, especially.
No.
So I remember it being very exciting, but I also remember just being enamoured by the look of the werewolves.
Yeah.
From the few shots you see in, promotional photos or posters, clips from the advert that'd be playing on telly, my little brain, I so wanted to see this movie. I was desperate to see it. And this was back in the day, like it would be in the cinema, you just hear about it. I didn't have a DVD player or a video player at home, so I couldn't even get it off the local DVD man.
Yeah.
Who'd be selling fake copies. And you just have to wait till it was on telly, but you'd have to hope it would come on Film 4 or Channel 4, and then you'd hope to just actually catch it. And then you'd hope to, your parents don't come in and tell you to turn that off and take the plug out of the TV because you won't go to bed. So I actually have never seen this film until we did it for the review here.
Really?
Never. The point is, I've seen it today and it fully delivered on what I want, and I really regret not seeing it as a kid because I feel like it would have been even more effective back then. But what I love about this film, if you watched this show before, nearly, even if we're reviewing with Nail and I, at some point we'll be talking about practical effects versus CGI, because we just always end up talking about it.
Oh, so many conversations.
And fuck me, this movie, I feel like I was watching some of the behind the scenes stuff as well before we came to do the recording today.
Yeah, thanks.
And I was just hearing them talk about how like they didn't like CGI at the time, especially CGI obviously would have been more expensive and less value for money and not as quality back then in 2002. And all the guys, obviously, it was practical effects guys saying it a lot of the time, so they're gonna say that, but everyone on set seemed to just be on the same page saying they didn't like CGI. There was too much of it nowadays. People relied on it because it was easy, or you could just say, we'll fix it later in post.
I think latex wins over CGI on this particular movie because you can't have the slime, you can't have the blood, you can't have all the things that make this visceral and gripping and real.
We want inside the camera effects, here and now, make it happen, make it believable, give the actors something they can react to.
Yeah.
They filmed for about 3 weeks in Luxembourg before any of the werewolf scenes were going to be filmed, so all the effects and some of the crew and special effects guys hadn't even flown out yet at the start of production. So when all the stuff started arriving, and all the props and all the mechanical wolf heads and all this started arriving on set, all the actors were asking like, can we look at him? And they were kids on Christmas morning, seeing them getting taken out of the boxes, having the animatronics operators show them how the lips could move independently from the jaw. There was like 5 different motions that the eyes could do, and the eyebrows would move, the top lip, I can't remember what it's called, but the top of a dog that kind of goes back and flails when they're snarling. So many different parts of the face that could move independently of each other. Not to mention the dancers that were brought in to perform, which I think is such a masterstroke, because I think that's another reason why the werewolves stand out so much from other werewolf movies, is generally you get 2 kind of werewolves. You get the lazy, it's just sort of a man with some hair on his face, and he moves kind of like a man. Or you get the werewolf that kind of literally just turns into a dog and gallops around like a dog. Whereas this is so unique where, firstly, the build, it's like slender and so tall.
Yeah.
These dancers were brought in who were tall, but also they had these special 1 foot stilts, which the actors were put into. And if you can imagine their foot going in at a downwards angle and then getting locked in like that, and they'd be in these for hours, sometimes standing around. So very quickly, cramp would start setting in, your ankle would be locked in place, your toes would... That's a very unnatural... It's basically like, imagine what women complain about wearing stilettos, but even worse. And in a big wolf costume. So incredibly uncomfortable, but it all comes together to create this really unique looking monster, slender, and with the movements of dancers who were in the costumes, really graceful.
Yeah, like they just move so like gracefully and fast through like the trees, and then you'll kind of like be watching it and catch them out the corner of your eye, like moving around, and like just if that happened, you'd be like, "Fucking hell, we're fucked."
Well, again, back to the same old thing I always make, or I always make anyway. But it's the Jaws effect. It's the Alien effect.
Yeah,
you know, Ridley Scott didn't have CGI back then to just have, okay, we're going to have the alien run across the room and he's going to jump up and then he's going to spray something out of his mouth and decapitate everyone. They had a man in a suit. So you have to get creative and clever, and you end up with a lot of quick cuts. And what that results in is the audience, you watching it, start to create what happens in your mind. You start filling in the blanks of what you don't see. And what your mind and imagination will fill in is always going to be infinitely better than anyone could actually ever deliver. That's why movie trailers work so well, is because you fill in the gaps, or if a good movie trailer. I bet if you worked out the actual runtime of how often a werewolf is on screen in this movie, it's probably not over 3 minutes. And that makes you want to see him. Like you get all these fleeting glimpses of him, or the silhouettes, and you want to get a proper good look at him, but you never really do.
That's what I like about them, the way that they're there because you can hear them making noises, but you just can't catch them. And then, like, they'll shoot them and you'll hear like the dog like whimper, but you never like see them till much later on, and it just building that suspense. You're like, I just want to see what they look like desperately, like, you know.
And talking about the sound as well, like as much as the visual of them is teased and not shown that much, they show a lot of restraint with the sound effects as well. Because you could easily go over the top with having, you know, like over the top whimpering when they're shot at, or really go heavy with the howls, but you don't hear howling that much.
No.
The first time you hear howling is just after the squaddy that we're following come across Captain Ryan.
Ryan, what happened here?
Do not tell me you fucking know him.
Captain Ryan, Special Ops.
Who's an Irish actor playing a very cunty, posh English sort of sergeant.
I've never seen this guy, but like...
It's Liam Cunningham, who he's, you know, probably most people would know him from Game of Thrones.
Oh, I see,
but he's been in... Like, if you looked up his IMDb, it would be outstanding. Like, he's been in so many big movies, so many classics, but, he's usually never the main character. And it's cool here, because I can't remember many times when I've seen him play a villain, and also playing like a posh English guy. It really threw me off at first.
But this is what I like about this film, because his performance is so good in this. I actually detest him more than the werewolves.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what
absolutely.
I mean? Like, I was just sitting there with bated breath, like, rip him to shreds. Like, fuck this guy.
Because it sets up perfectly, because the thing is, we need to get into the characters, because we've talked about the werewolves, and naturally you'd think the werewolves are going to be the most memorable thing, but it's kind of not. Like, I love the characters in this. Like, the opening half an hour where you're just following and getting to know all the lads in the squad is brilliant. And you're just seeing banter. You know, so much of it must have been maybe not improvised, but kind of written on the fly. And I was watching gag reels where pretty much 99% of the stuff that never got used or deleted scenes, it wasn't like an extra shot in the cottage later on or an extra werewolf shot. It was all just banter between the soldiers.
Yeah, but the trap that most blokes fall into is they don't understand that something so simple as a kiss can be the greatest gift a woman can bestow upon a man. But when used in anger, it can be the single most soul-destroying weapon in our arsenal. What are you on about, yo?
And a lot of these like films, Declan, they kind of like force the chemistry. Like, we are soldiers and we are banter, and it just doesn't come across as that at all.
Bollocks, I don't believe this. Let me watch at the barracks, Sarge. Nice work, spoon, you tosser.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
And you'll be taking my boot out your mouth in a minute, Joe, you baldy twat.
Like, you never want to see dialogue. You never want to know. You never want to know, for instance, that this dialogue was inserted here, not because that would sound natural, but because we need the audience to know this thing for the next scene to make sense. Or, here's a dialogue to let you know that I am a good person and I'm about to die and you're supposed to feel bad for me. It's even worse when you're supposed to be like, oh, that was supposed to be, these people that work together have banter. Because they've known each other for years. They're not actors that met 5 seconds ago. But you do 100% believe it in this.
Well then, Bruce, what scares you?
The self-destructive nature of the human condition.
Just taking a piss now.
Only one thing guaranteed to put the shits at me. A penalty shootout.
The acting is actually so good that you just feel that they, like, if these people or characters were real, they would genuinely die for each other. That's what I felt.
It felt like a
personally.
real squad as well. And
Yeah,
I
it
think
did.
a big part of that was the fact that they all were from all over the UK.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that was super intentional. I'm pretty sure Spoon, he wasn't supposed to be a Geordie. That was originally supposed to be Simon Pegg.
Yeah,
And
I read that.
And the reason Simon Pegg didn't do it was because he supposedly had either promised or was convinced by Edgar Wright to make sure the first movie he did, if it was going to be a horror comedy, it'd be Shaun of the Dead.
Which, in
It's
hindsight,
kind of unreasonable, to be honest, to ask your friend to do that.
Yeah, which in hindsight worked out very well for him.
Would it?
But, but he would have been good in this.
But I don't think it was either or. I don't think it was a scheduling conflict.
Yeah.
Whereas Jason Statham was originally going to play the role of Cooper.
Oh, really?
But Jason Statham, Simon Pegg in this movie, you'd have to think it would elevate it. But I love Kevin McKidd from Trainspotting playing Cooper. And I love the Geordie fella playing Spoon. And the fact that one was Scottish, one was Geordie, one was kind of like a gruff fucking English guy.
Yeah.
It made it very believable.
Oh, shit.
All right, lads. Grab what you can. Head for the tree line. We're moving. Let's go.
Go.
It's a simplistic plot, let's not get it wrong, but it's just a fucking fantastic idea.
Well, the thing is, I actually disagree with you entirely.
Really?
I don't think that's a clever idea at all. Like, that as your one-sentence pitch isn't clever.
Right.
The execution is fantastic.
I was about to say that. The execution is what
Like, the
makes
acting is fantastic, the direction is fantastic, the special effects is fantastic. And,
Okay.
like, the finer details of the script is actually really clever. But it doesn't become convoluted either.
The most important football match of my life is playing tonight, and I'm stuck up the backside of beyond without so much as a six-pack or a telly.
It's the night that England are playing Germany. And we find out later that they actually beat them 5-1. So you'd guess that this was September the 1st, previous year, 2001, is when it's supposed to be set, which was a full moon that night. I think he'd been writing this for about 10 years, Neil Marshall, the director-writer. But he must have been watching the football that night, realised it was a full moon, and thought, I'm definitely incorporating this into... This is the night it's going to be set.
I was wondering that, like, was he actually, like, checking what days were, like...
Oh, he must have been. Or it must have been the night. I would love to know. But anyway, so we got Sean Pertwee from Event Horizon. Mm. Love this actor. One of those English actors who always plays himself. Like, he'll never do an accent. Yeah. Generally, though, he's a likeable person. He's got a likeable way about him, and his characters always tend to be likeable. Like, he doesn't play that many villains.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's in that, and he's the commanding officer. He's the only guy. His backstory, he's the only one that's actually seen combat, and he's got very much a fatherly sort of approach to his role as the leader of the squad.
I want to know what scares a Sarge.
Piss off, man. Nothing scares a Sarge.
I don't know about that. I thought I'd never see my wife again. Scares the shit out of me.
Kevin McKidd as Cooper, who we see in the opening scene. He's obviously a fucking badass. He's nearly getting into the special forces, but Captain Ryan, the cunt, asks him to shoot a dog, which would never happen in real life because those, I think they cost like $100,000 to train or something.
Fuck that,
But it's a nice setup, obviously mixing in the fact that it's a dog and dog soldiers and all that. It immediately sets up, he's your cunt, he's your hero, we like him, we don't like him, go. So that's perfect, sets up straight away. Also lets you know that, sometimes it's hard to know who's the main character, even when you're following a lot of characters, because horror movies need meat for the grinder. They need a lot. They need to introduce a lot of characters because people need to die. So anyway, so they start going on their exercises, and then while they're in the middle of it, they notice a flare going up. So they go to inspect the flare, and they discover a bloodbath.
What the fucking hell happened here, Sarge?
This is getting more boring by the minute.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Sarge.
Cunty Mac Cuntface pops up out of nowhere, doesn't he?
As the only survivor with a big old cartoon 3 slash marks across his chest from a claw.
Yeah.
So he's kind of raving mad, and he's saying there was only supposed to be one of them, and he keeps repeating himself, and they don't know what the hell he's talking about, but they can just see like something crazy is happening at this scene. So luckily they've been using blanks up to this point because they're just on an exercise, but they take all the live ammo and live munitions and live weapons from the dead special forces, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And then they start hearing the howls.
What the fuck?
Oh, shit.
All right, lads. Grab what you can. Head for the tree line. We're moving.
And I was like, oh shit, it's about to kick off now. Do you know what I mean?
Certain people have like the perfect voices for certain moments in movies. Like they always say Vince Vaughn is great at giving a rousing speech. And watch that now, you'll notice he does it in every single film.
Yeah,
he is really good at it.
Sean
Pertwee is great at that moment where he's like, get ready, we got to do something. Like, everyone
blank's gone, boys, live, go live now. And it's like, it's going to kick off.
Covering fire!
Now, obviously, they don't know what's going on right now, or what they are, but they're like running away. One of them, this was the only bit in the movie I really thought was just stupid and I didn't like it. The fact that one of them just runs into a branch. And originally he was apparently supposed to be thrown off a cliff by one of the wolves, but they couldn't film it. Either it was too difficult and they didn't have time, so they did the old Indiana Jones just shoots the guy with the sword thing. You know, just like throw out that fight scene or that expensive scene and we'll just do it easier. But they could have come up with something better. Even kill him off screen rather than that. Like these are supposed to be elite soldiers and he just ran into a branch. And also, how, like, do you know how fast you'd have to run? To run, impale yourself with a branch that size.
To be fair, Declan, I was thinking that. Like, why would the branch be, like, sticking out? And how sharp must it have been? But then again, I did remember. Do you remember that kid from school who fell out the tree? And 2 branches were sticking up. And they went right into his eyes.
I don't know, but you better get your facts straight.
Get your facts right. Anyway, yeah, that was... They're supposed to be elite soldiers and, like... Yeah, that was very... It was very stupid.
So anyway, so they're running for their lives, they're freaking out, and then this random woman pulls up and they jump into her car. And we get the first close look of a wolf as its arm comes down through the Land Rover roof. And it's feeling around for him. And, I'm totally
Before this, Sean Pertwee
gets his guts ripped out.
Jesus!
I always found this funny where he's lying on the floor, he's got his guts half ripped out, they're literally like falling out, they have to push it back into his body. And I remember watching it thinking, oh, it's only 10 minutes in and Sean Pertwee's dead. I really liked his character. Yeah, and then he lives for the rest of the movie.
This was stupid as well because, like, literally his guts are like out, you can see it, even though it's a bit of a shit effect. And then, like, he manages to stand up and, like, run about, and it's like, no, you wouldn't be able to move. You'd be severely fucked.
I assume that. I didn't see much of that in Saving Private Ryan in the opening scene.
I know.
They were staying on the floor waiting for a
Maybe
minute.
Sean Pertwee's character is just fucking hard as nails.
Maybe for the first hour or two, he should have just been dead. But something in the plot later on starts to make it plausible within this universe.
Yeah.
So this character Megan that's just come across him brings them to a cottage of a nearby family that she supposedly knows and knows they're good people, so they can stay there. When they get there, no one's in, so they just think, fuck it, let's just barge in.
Yeah.
They start eating their food, which it never reveals, but they mention it tastes like pork.
Oh yeah, they do.
And we later see in the larder downstairs, it's full of human corpses and human remains, which also the props were actually left over from Event Horizon. People that have eaten human meat have said it tastes quite like pork, so we can assume that they were actually unintentionally eating human remains.
Right. Okay. I thought everything tasted like chicken. Like you eat, but I didn't realise that. That just totally like it just was like a throwaway comment, so I just totally forgot about it.
No, that is like the movie is actually really richly written. Like for what is essentially superficially you could call just sort of a standard horror movie. No word in this movie is left in it that doesn't mean something. It's either calls back to something, or is suggesting something, or is just funny, or is a nod to another movie, or a homage to another classic movie.
You know what this reminds me of? Rorke's Drift. 100 men of Harlech making a desperate stand against 10,000 Zulu warriors.
Which this film is full of. Even Neil Marshall actually said later that he felt like he went way overboard with all the nods to other movies.
So you saying that the werewolves in human form still eat human flesh?
Yes.
Okay.
Because what we learn is the family of werewolves are actually all the family that live in this house.
Yeah.
And I love that idea as well, like a family of werewolves that all turn on the one night and terrorise the locals.
Because it has to be though, because later on, because they're trying to like Cooper's saying, we need to get the Sarge evacuated because his gut's hanging out, he's going to die, isn't he? And then she goes, the closest glen from here is 42 miles, so who else can it be apart from these fucking family from this house? Do you know what I mean? There's not another house or civilization.
Well, there's a lot of theories about why she takes them there, because she's not a part of the family, but we learn later she's a zoologist and she was fascinated. She heard rumours of werewolves in this area and came up to see it, and found more than she bargained for, and obviously got turned.
I came here to be at one with nature. Well, I got what I wanted. Now I have to live with it.
We don't know if they turned her on purpose or she got turned, they tried to kill her and she got away and she turned later. But either way, she's, linked. There's a lot about the mythology we don't ever find out, so you don't know if, she's drawn to them now that she's a werewolf herself. We don't know if she's angry about it, but some of the theories of why she joins up with the soldiers is that she believes that the one that turned her is killed, then she'll be no longer a werewolf. So the reason she brings the soldiers to that cabin is she wants them to kill him off. But you never really find out, and it gets muddled by the fact that when a link comes out later between her and Captain Ryan, that she was actually working with the Special Forces guys.
I know him. I was seconded to his team during their first visit here.
First visit? What first visit? What the fuck are you talking about?
For whatever they were trying to do as well, because going off on another tangent, they were, I guess, trying to harness the power of werewolves.
Ever heard of Special Weapons Division? They're the men in white coats who train dolphins to stick mines on submarines.
But my point is, when that link comes up, it never really goes anywhere, and it seems a bit weird. And it was actually, Neil Marshall never wrote that. The producers forced that into it. And he was always really angry about it because he felt it never gets brought up again and it made no sense to the plot. So that, again, adds more confusion to it. But it's quite interesting when you actually stop and think about it. For a movie that is essentially quite straightforward, there's also a surprising amount of ambiguity and you can fill in the gaps a lot of what was going on behind it. It does feel like any time there's a successful horror movie, studios are like, let's make 9 of them.
Yeah.
But this actually feels like a movie where the concept and the world building is done really well, and it should have had a bunch of sequels.
If you
get onto later.
If you think of the way that the other squaddies found out that Brian and her knew each other, it was really forced, which kind of makes sense because she just goes out of nowhere, "Shut up, Ryan."
You'll need a lot more than luck this time.
Shut up, Ryan! Listen to me, Cooper. Ignore him. We can survive till sunrise. That's all that matters. It's just a few more hours.
Wait a minute, am I missing something here?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
And then it never gets brought up again.
Yeah,
it was good acting though. They actually sold that moment. You know, that kind of reading between the lines of the way. It's not what they said, it's the way that she said it.
Yeah.
So it was well performed, but just a stupid addition forced in by producers that didn't need to be there. And really annoyed Neil Marshall afterwards. So it's a movie of two halves, or 1/3 and 2/3, where before they get to the cottage and after they get to the cottage. Great set as well. All the exteriors were built in studio. It was actually 2 sets built for the exteriors, for one side of the cottage and one for the other side of the cottage, all built from scratch, so they could, of course, blow it all up in the end. But it's a great set because it turns into a siege movie from this point on.
Yeah, it does actually.
And again, until the last 10 or 20 minutes, you rarely see a full werewolf shot.
Yeah,
it's a lot of arms coming through windows, heads looking through a hole in a door, and this, that, and the other.
This siege, what you touched on, is where the numerous homages begin in the film, because one of the soldiers, I think it could be Spoon or the other one, the one who's ever chewing gum constantly, I think it's Spoon, he kind of smashes out the windows and turns around to the other guy and goes, "This is like Rourke Swift, 100 men of Harlem versus 1,000 Zulus."
Staring death in the face, not flinching for a moment. Balls of British steel.
You're bloody loving this, aren't you?
Also, when they have to smash through the wall of another room to get into another
because that's
room.
when Hook, the famous anti-hero who was the best character, kicks through the wall and starts shooting everyone. I was like, this is fucking sick. But yeah.
So we slowly start to see Wells is turning into a werewolf. They don't know that. Megan knows it, but she's not letting in. They know it, but we as an audience know it because werewolf movie. We know the score.
Yeah.
So he's slowly turning into a werewolf and slowly starting to mend. I like the scene where they were trying to super glue his massive gouge in his stomach.
Yeah. I'll tell you something, miss. Right, this geezer here, right, is my best mate. He's a salt of the fucking earth.
What did you think of his performance pretending to be drunk?
Good.
Yeah, it was because he was hammered. He was not acting. He was really, really drunk for that scene.
I can kind of tell that.
And the shot where he asked him to knock him out because he can't take the pain, he was supposed to pretend to be knocked out, perform being knocked out after the first punch.
Yeah.
But he kind of surprised McKidd by coming up and asking him to hit him again. So when you see the first time it doesn't seem like he makes contact with him, and it's because he's doing a stage punch where you don't actually hit him. The second time he completely clocked him.
Oh, really?
Didn't actually knock him out, but really did it hurt him with the second punch.
Knock me out! Hit me! Oh, you fucking pussy, hit me!
When you know later the posh woman's role, zoologist, Cooper goes to her, do you do this all the time? And she's like, oh yeah, we always like stitch up people's guts in farmhouses. And it's like, you realise later that she has actually done this loads of times, like trying to fix
well, again, it creates a thing where what you don't know is nearly better than what you get to know in the movie, because it does leave your mind whirling where you're like how many times has this family does this? Yeah. What is her relationship with them? Does she get on with them? Does she hate them for turning into a werewolf? Is she the one that always lures them back? Is it, it just leaves you with so many questions where you're like, I want to know more. I want prequels, I want sequels, I want fucking TV series.
The thing that I would like to know is, like, in a lot of like lore, when they turn into a werewolf and transfer back, they like often wake up like surrounded by guts. But I don't remember doing this, because in this they're portrayed as very calculating and clever. Like, I wonder if and obviously if they're eating the pork, the human meat in human form, they must remember everything they do as a werewolf.
I think they're 100% lucid, conscious, and in control of themselves.
But then again, Declan, why would they remain in such an isolated population where they have to hunt down random campers? Wouldn't they go to a populated area?
Well, there's things like CCTV.
Yeah, true.
It's probably hard to be a werewolf in the fucking, Hackney or whatever.
Yeah.
Die!
Obviously, they haven't got a lot of like ammunition, because it's not like they're actually going to war. They're on an exercise. So bearing in mind, they have to conserve this ammo because it is going to run out. And they're doing stuff like boarding the windows up and shit like that. And then there's like a really funny bit where they're fighting in the little hallway, and Spoonie, I think, is shooting through the letterbox. He just runs out Cooper with the boiling water and throws it in his face. And then the next scene, he's got a hammer that he's picked up and he's just hammering the wolves. Because they are lucid, going back to your point, because they kind of have this tactic where one of them's this side and the other's that side. And you see the wolf, or the werewolf, reach his arm in to try and unlock the door, so they know exactly what they're doing.
They're not animalistic.
And I thought that was really cool, and I was like, if they know what they're doing...
Well, not to mention, the first thing they do is rip the car engine up so they can't escape.
Yeah. And then, unfortunately, one of the squaddies, he thinks he's kind of won the battle when everything dies down, legit, when the smoke clears from the fracas, and he's like, fucking pussies or something, and it just drags him out the window, and they like tear him apart.
More like pussies.
Like, there's not a lot of clear on-screen deaths.
No.
But you get a real sense that these things, like, they're like walk-in blenders. Like, the moment you're in range, they kind of just completely... They don't even, like, cut you. They splatter you. You end up just as, like, a mess of guts.
But literally, the captain, it looks like they didn't even do any effort. They just went, like, battered him, and his whole guts...
He's completely disemboweled.
Which would make sense, because the size of them, they must be about 6 foot...
7 foot.
7 foot. So their fucking hands with their claws must be like fucking like Freddy Krueger razors.
Like you said, of how they try and create distractions and go in another way. They realise one of them's broken into where Wells is asleep, recovering from being stitched up or super glued up. And this is, for me, my favourite shot, because it's probably the longest you stay on one wolf in one single shot, where it's stepping in through the window. And there's something about it, it's just beautiful. Like as much as these are some of the most terrifying looking designs for a werewolf I've ever seen in film, they're kind of beautiful. Like the way it stands, like you don't need to be told there's a dancer in there. There's kind of something
like glides in, and then the way it like stands up like that.
And I like the fact that because they can't be running around because they're in stilts and it's a hard, difficult costume and they can't see, but because of that, you get this. There's something menacing about how they never move that much on camera. They seem to like run about when it's off screen, or you hear them running about to create the effect of them moving. But they're always kind of standing still or looking about or kind of like taking stock of what's around them. And obviously that's a that's kind of like caused by a drawback of the limitations of the practical effects they're using. But for me, it made them feel intelligent.
Yeah.
Like these weren't just like ravenous beasts. These were a human intelligence put into a monster's body.
Yeah, they're not like running around like cluelessly. Like they're very calculating, which is even more scary, as you said.
How sad were you when Spoons dies?
I don't know. He put up a fucking fight.
Oh mate, he had a full-on fisticuffs, mate, with a fucking werewolf.
That by this point they had run out of all their bullets.
Oh yeah, they're all separated. All the werewolves are in the house. Megan has betrayed them, revealed that she's a werewolf. Ryan at this point has always also turned into a werewolf and escaped.
Bastard, yeah.
And Megan's let all the werewolves into the house, and there's that iconic shot of as her eyes turn, showing that she's about to transform. You see the 3 silhouettes behind her of the 7-foot werewolves standing up.
But I like this scene because it was very much. I wonder if this was a homage to like Indiana Jones. You know, the sword spinning thing.
Yeah.
Because she's transforming, and then one of them just, while she's in the middle of transforming, still human, just gets a gun and goes, shoots her in the head, and then like goes, someone had to shut that bitch up or something like that.
Go now! Ah, Spoonie, stop fucking around!
Back to Paul Spoonie. So he's separated, and he gets cornered by one of them, and then
in the kitchen,
in the kitchen, unfortunately, and he has no gun, and he's just rifling through the drawers trying to find whatever he can, and he just finds is it just like a normal kitchen knife or a steak knife, I guess, and Spoonie knows that there's no way he's going to win this, but he just looks at him and goes, "I'm gonna fuck you up," and like runs to and just shanks it like so many times,
and he's punching it, kicking it. They're bobbing and weaving and having like literally like the werewolf is in a boxing stance at one point. It's ridiculous.
I was going to say,
brilliant.
Imagine if like Mike Tyson was there, like just proper fucking it up.
He would have had a chance.
But then in the end, he stabs it so many times it does nothing. Blood is splurting out, but it's just not hurting it, and he just like. He knows he's going to die by this point, but he just wants to fuck it up as much. He starts chucking plates at it, doing everything. And in the end, you kind of like see that he's losing and he's going to die. And then one of his trademarks is to constantly chew the gum, and then it corners him against the wall. He goes, "I hope I'll give you the shit, you pussy," and like spits his chewing, and it just rips him apart.
I hope I give you the shit, you fucking wimp.
It's a brilliant line. And originally, they had a big practical effect ready that they filmed where he gets completely ripped in two, and all his organs spill out.
Allow that, man.
Neil Marshall just thought, nah, this character's so nice. He's not nice, but he's likeable. You like him so much. You watch him the whole way through, and then to have that grisly and on-screen death at the end of it would just kind of be upsetting. And also, it actually works better. Like going out on the beat of that great line. I hope I give you the shits. If they said that great line and then had that horrible death, you wouldn't get the most out of the joke, out of the dialogue, and then, like you said, it would just be demoralising.
And also, because he put up such a good fight, the good fight, if it just ripped him apart easily, would have been like, well, that was just pointless. All of that. So good choice by Neil Marshall there.
So we get down to like the final sequence where Wells has realised he's about to turn into a werewolf, so him and Cooper has a little tearful like, "I'm not going to leave you, Sergeant."
Yeah.
"Oh, you get out of here, man." Blah, blah. They have that little moment.
He's like, "Fucking go!" He's just going backwards, like spazzing out.
So they hook up the gas, ready to blow up the cottage. Cooper runs down to the basement to hide, and that's when he uncovers all the bodies that obviously been, basically it looks like they've been preserved in a larder and being used over a long period of time. So he's there, and the whole house blows up above him.
Yeah.
All the werewolves are taken out and it's all good. And when they filmed this for real, Neil Marshall ended up nearly ruining a lot of the takes. Well, you only get one shot with multiple cameras of blowing up the whole set because he was so kind of overcome with childish delight of seeing it getting to blow up a giant cottage that he just started laughing maniacally while they were filming. So they ended up not being able to use any of the audio. But it was all right in the end.
I thought it was like a little model, to be honest.
No, it was a full set they blew up.
obviously Ryan's already transformed. Quite cool effects when he transforms as well. I thought it was.
I appreciate the fact that they did the classic.
Like transform.
My eyes go weird, and then I go behind a piece of furniture, and then I jump up as the werewolf.
Yeah, that was cool. And you don't see Ryan after that because he jumps out the window, and you're like, you know he's going to come back because he's like he is the villain of the piece, and now he's a werewolf, so you're definitely going to see him again. He goes down to the basement, and all of a sudden Ryan comes back in werewolf form, and Cooper starts fighting him. Ryan's werewolf's fucking him up, obviously, because it's like 9 foot, 10 foot, 8 foot. And he's saying, oh, you're a pussy, like, blah, 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 like, trying to fight it. Battering, knocks him down. And then he sees in the camping gear, like a little, was it letter opener?
Yeah, it looked like a little silver letter opener.
Silver letter opener. But it was quite cool, this shot, because obviously knives have, like, engravings on them, depending what they are. And it's got the engraving in it of silver. So he looks at it. Not many people know it anyway, but you're going to just try and stab him anyway. Stabs him. And again, this is quite a cool effect, the way they make it known it's silver, because he kind of goes like a weird orangey hue and goes... Ooh.
There's a weird morphing sort of in the body that goes on,
And then they're fiddling around because his gun's been like knocked out. And before that, Sean Pertwee character's saying, this is the last bullet. Like, just
save it for yourself, in case blah, blah, blah.
Which I kind of like the first time I watched it was like, he's going to fucking use it to commit suicide or something rather than get eaten. But anyway, he doesn't. And he's like... faffing around, and then it goes back to such a beautiful arc about the football, because earlier on Ryan's like all posh, right? All you care is about football when there's werewolves here.
Do you like football?
What? They think it's all over and all that crap. No, I don't.
Well, Joe, you remember Joe? He liked football.
Do you like football, Ryan? He's like, absolutely not.
Penalties and staking your life on that. and then anyway, Cooper just gets the gun and beautifully just goes, I think it's all over. It is now. And just shoots him in the head. Don't show Sophie that.
You think it's all over? It is now.
So stupid, but perfect. Also, just for American listeners, just American listeners who don't know much about football.
Good point.
They think it's all over. It is now. Was a famous piece of commentary when England won the World Cup in the closing minutes against Germany.
Some people are on the pitch. They think it's all over. It is now. It's four. And Charlton.
Yeah, you think it's the end of the film, but there's quite like funny bits in the like end credits where they get the camera roll and.
Well, basically throughout. They were fighting with everything, and Megan was helping when they were trying to keep the werewolves out of the house, and she was helping by taking photos with an old sort of flash camera,
and it was hurting them
with a really bright flash, sort of blinding them momentarily while the lads were shooting or hitting them with pans and all that. Over the credits, we see black and white photos that she was taking the whole time coming up. Which is just such a brilliant little touch at the end, like it's so smart.
And then this was the funniest bit. It comes up with a newspaper headline of like a picture of Cooper like looking at the camera like all bewildered. Like, my squaddy was eaten by werewolves and then overshadowed by England beating Germany 5-1. So it's like a little section of the paper. So I thought that was very
just really good, like just perfect. It like British horror movies always feel like a British horror movie because they're British, but they usually are naturally modelling themselves on American horror movies, whatever genre they're doing. The Britishness was just stuffed into this movie, and if they thought it was full, they'd find another little crack or hole and stuff some more in. Like it really is a British fucking movie.
But I will say on that point, don't let that. It's not overwhelming, the Britishness. It adds to it. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, when they stuff it in too much in your face, and you're like, this is getting a bit weary now. At no point in this whole film do I ever feel that. It's very good acting the whole time. But to sum it up, would I recommend this film?
Fuck yes, mate.
I'm going to give this very high praise indeed, Declan. I feel, and this is my personal view, I kind of feel that this is our British version of Aliens. Commandos in space, fighting against unmountable odds, against creatures that are far more powerful than them. It's the Xenomorphs versus the Space Commandos. This is our British version.
This is the Filmy McFilm Film Show.